Number 64, the identity fallacy. And then later in it is another one of cultural appropriation. Oh boy.
Oh, wow. This is going to be a big one.
Yes.
Also, identity politics. Die away, ye old forms of logic. A corrupt post-mortem argument from ethos, a variant on the
Wait,
argumentum.
do we know what ethos is?
No, I was hoping you wouldn't draw attention to it. Here we go.
We gotta, because also the audience should know too.
Yeah. A characteristic spirit of a culture, era, or community as manifested in its beliefs and aspirations. That's,
Okay. So it's kind of like the culture has decided that this is the thing.
yes. Cultural thing. So a corrupt postmodern argument from ethos, which is culture, a variant on the argument ad hominem in which the validity of one's logic, evidence, experience, or arguments depends not on their own strength, but rather on whether the one arguing is a member of a given social class, generation, nationality, religious or ethnic group, color, gender, sexual orientation, profession, occupation, or subgroup. In this fallacy, valid opposing evidence and arguments are brushed aside or othered without comment or consideration as simply not worth arguing about solely because of the lack of proper background or ethos of the cultural standing of the person making the argument, or because the one arguing does not self-identify as a member of the in-group. Example, you'd understand me right away if you were Burmese, but since you're not, there's no way I can explain it to you. Or, quote, nobody but another nurse can know what a nurse has to go through. Identity fallacies are reinforced by common ritual, language, and discourse. However, these fallacies are occasionally self-interested, driven by the egotistical ambitions of academics, politicians, and would-be group leaders anxious to build their own careers by carving out a special identity group constituency to the exclusion of existing broader based identities and leadership. An identity fallacy may lead to scorn or rejection of potentially useful allies, real or prospective, because they are not one's own identity. The identity fallacy promotes an exclusivist, sometimes cultish, do for self philosophy, which in today's world virtually guarantees self marginalization and ultimate defeat. A recent application of the identity fallacy is the fallacious accusation of cultural appropriation, in which those who are not of the right identity are condemned for, quote, appropriating the cuisine, clothing, language, or music of a marginalized group, forgetting the old axiom that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Accusations of cultural appropriation often stem from competing selfish economic interests. Example, what right do those. Oh, interesting. What right do those pinche gringos have to set up a taco place right here in Guadalupe Drive to take away business from Doña Teresa's Taqueria? They even dare to play Mexican music in their dining room. That's cultural appropriation. See also othering. Wow, big, lots of stuff here.
Yeah,
Really, really big one.
for sure. I want to know your thoughts, but one thing I wanted to say first that I think is fascinating about this fallacy is unlike almost everything else on this list, uh, everything else on this list seems to have, at least in today's society, people that know the fallacy. It's often condemned. This one so far I found unique that especially I would say um, the political left in America actually celebrates this fallacy and makes people feel shame up to this day
Yeah.
on this one. Um,
Yeah.
which is fascinating because normally they don't. From almost all fallacies, the political left tries to not do that, but with this one, it is celebrated. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Alan's thoughts.
Yeah. Um, there's a quote by Tony Robbins that is it's one of my favorites, and uh, the quote is, "There is no force more powerful in the human experience than the need to remain consistent with our own identity." And I love it because in my experience and also in attending his seminars and doing independent research of my own, I really find that to be really accurate. That identity is a super powerful force that everyone has. And it's like, yeah, it's like because it's so powerful, I think that's why it gets used so much. I've even like even in my own coaching and the speaking that I do, a word that I used for a long time as an identity word for myself, but also for those I was trying to work with, was a difference maker. Someone who, in their life, making a difference is their primary and ultimate drive. That they have other things, but at the end of the day, the reason they do what they do is because they wish in this lifetime to make a difference the way they were designed to do it. And that whole I would say that all the time, and I would use it because it's like the one of the games I think in speaking, but also just if one is trying to make anything happen in life, is how can you as quickly as possible communicate ideas that lead to action? And so I see the attraction of using identity in ways that are supportive, but then like I can also see where it backfires, where like someone's identity makes them omitted to something else. Like there are people who, whether they like it or not, they identify with being poor. And as a result, by identifying with being poor, anything that comes with a whole bunch of stuff. And so if someone comes by and they have a nice car, or if someone comes by and they perhaps are successful, all of a sudden they're like anything that person says is a lie because they have money and they had to stomp on people like us to make that work. Meanwhile, that person driving that car might actually, be a philanthropist and runs one of the largest organizations in the world that helps people get food and, when they need it most. Like it's like all that kind of stuff. So it's like yeah, I just this one really fascinates me, I think, because just of the strength of it, and the level of intensity that it has. And then culture appropriation, yeah, yeah, man. It just sometimes it fascinates me. It really fascinates me. I used to so politically I used to be very left. I used to be very, very liberal. Um, and I would definitely say that now I consider myself more right in the center. And I remember when I was more liberal, I really believed like identity politics. I really believed that everything I thought was right and that everything that the right thought was wrong. I believed in things like cultural appropriation being bad and wrong and all this kind of stuff. Like I remember feeling so justified in being angry at someone else. And now like as I've now expanded more of my own work with myself and healing and identities and all the things, it really fascinates me the length of which the lengths to which people are willing to be hateful and hurtful towards others. And I don't know, I earlier on in this process with you and I voiced wanting to leave politics out of it. And genuinely, the reason that I wanted to, in part, was because it just seems like it's just this oftentimes, not always, but it seems like oftentimes it just becomes this vehicle to generate hate. It's like the left has reasons why they feel justified in hating others and shaming others. The right feels justified in reasons why they hate others and shame others. And it's like, yeah, it's cultural appropriation is definitely one of those things that it's just yeah, I get angry. I get angry in my system about it. It's like what? So I can't go and enjoy fusion tacos because someone gets upset that someone took Asian food, Mexican food, smashed them together and they're freaking delicious. Like, so what? That makes that wrong. Oh, the owner's white. The owner's neither Asian nor Mexican. Fuck that guy. It's just like that to me. It's like, what are you kidding me? Like, we're literally just playing. Like the dude probably sat down and was like, I wonder what would happen if you put this doesn't make any sense at all. This is Thai food. If you took pad Thai and tacos and slammed them together, and then they get this thing, and they're like, "Oh, that's delicious," or "Oh, that sucks." It's just like it's just playing with food, and then being like, "Hey, try this thing I created," and then but yet something like that is then something so innocent and whatever is like used as a weapon by one side or the other. So it's just yeah, this one's interesting. My overall thoughts on this is that both of these things, the identity fallacy and cultural appropriation are two incredibly powerful forces that I find are very often used for hate and shame.
Yeah. I tend to lean more left, and it for me it really does depend on the topic. I'm not necessarily left overall. Sometimes for a certain subject I could be extremely left, or things like gun rights. I'm actually kind of right on. Um, so so I don't want to like put myself in a box here, but when it comes to this one, I feel genuinely sick to my stomach right now because I understand that this is a fallacy that the left uses a lot, and to acknowledge this as a fallacy uh, is striking in me this kind of like in group out group thing where I'm what's the thing called when you are challenging something that like you believe in and it's that uncomfortable feeling. Um, it's a thing. But anyways, um, the so I want to throw out some examples here that I will acknowledge are technically fallacies, at the same time I would argue are unproductive to society to uh, argue against. So when the left says something like men shouldn't be making decisions about women's bodies is
Mm,
technically a fallacy. It's the identity fallacy.
mm,
Um, Granted, I very much am in the camp of like people should have control over their own bodies. Um, but this is part of the identity fallacy. Um, so, and that's why it makes me feel gross to even acknowledge it as being fallacious, because I think that is a strong talking point that people use to sway people's opinion, but it is fallacious. And I think it's important for me to take pride in acknowledging whether something is a fallacy or not, regardless of how much I agree with it or not.
mm,
And I can take more pride in being honest with myself rather than going with what everybody else says to promote uh, bodily autonomy, I think is important. You could say the same thing about gay rights. If you're not gay, then like don't you shouldn't have a say on like who I get married with, or if you're not trans, then you can't talk about trans people. You shouldn't make rights. You shouldn't make laws against them. Which I very much agree. You shouldn't make laws against trans people. That's what's happening nowadays. Um, Technically, that is the identity fallacy, and I understand. Again, it is against. It is counterproductive to trans people to even acknowledge that as a fallacy. So I'm grossed up by it. I like want to like throw up right now. But I want to be as honest as possible, and that is a fallacy. Um, yeah, and so there's a lot of shame that goes along with that. That if you are not born this color, or are this gender, or are this thing that we assign you to, you cannot do X, Y, whatever it is, and you should be shamed for it. Um, oh my gosh, I want to. There's another one I'm thinking of that I want to throw up, just even like thinking about it. Because I don't think it's elsewhere on this list. I can acknowledge that this is a fallacy, but I understand that it is counterproductive, extremely counterproductive to society to to practice this. Um, but it is a fallacy. It is the identity fallacy to say what derogatory slurs that people are allowed to use with each other in group and out group based on one's own skin color or mental what is it called? Whether they are neurodivergent or not, or whether they are gay or not. Some of these examples would be the N word, the R word, and the F slur. Um, those are reclaimed words that those groups use to um, feel pride in what they are, and I understand that that is the cultural assignment to why we practice that. Um, so and that is ethos. We have decided that those words should be used by those groups and not outside of that. But it is a fallacy. And I say but because it is, but it shouldn't be. I'm okay with not fighting this one. Like I don't think that uh, I'm gonna go around and start saying the N word. I don't think that's productive for society, even though I can acknowledge that it is a fallacy. Um, Fallacies, as we've said before, are not good or bad. Some of them can be very much bad, and I would argue this one, in some circumstances, like the one I just mentioned, can be very productive to society. Um, Fallacies are not reasons for why we should do something. You can argue that a reason still exists, like the ones I just mentioned, that those um, groups were suppressed and they want to feel pride. I would say that is the reason um, why certain words can not be very mixed between. Uh, and I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but uh, I would say that that is that this fallacy, um, because I'm white or uh, because I am neurodivergent and I'm on LGBT, so I can use the other two words. But because I'm white, I can't use the N word. Um, that is a fallacy. Um, but I think it's a productive one. I think it's good for society to let that one be. The cultural appropriation one, I still very much agree with the part where it says A lot of people forget that imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery.
Mm.
Um, Whenever I would see, and this was a lot bigger like 10 years ago, but the cultural appropriation thing, because I would see people who were white on my Facebook getting mad at other people who were white going to Mexico and they wore a sombrero. And they're like, you are cultural appropriating because you don't understand the significance of the clothing that you're wearing. And it's like, okay, but what if you didn't know whether that person had a master's in um like culture, and like they fully understood why they wore that, and they wanted to be a part of it. Um that at that point it's like that's kind of racist, right? Um so yeah, I don't I for a lot of the accusations I've seen, I they don't hold a lot of water when it comes to cultural appropriation. That one I'll typically fight, um because I think, yeah, like Alan said with the Asian food mixed with the Mexican food. Like, bro, it's okay to play with your food sometimes, you know. So, yeah. Any thoughts on the little rant that I just had there, Alan?
No, I think you're well, no thoughts. I want to acknowledge you for your dedication to your craft in this. Your craft, and what I mean by this is like you mentioned wanting to memorize the fallacies, but of course, like there's a difference between just rote memorization, but then choosing to embody that which we are trying to um, uh, embody. Yeah, there's a difference between memorization and embodiment. And memorization is one thing. It's what we're all taught in school, and it's why none of us remember anything from school. Um, but then embodiment is where it's like, no, I want to be a stand for this thing, and so I'm going to, despite the discomfort that I may feel or the confrontation I may experience in the process of embodying this, I shall because I believe in it. So that process that I just described, the process of embodying something, is a very courageous, very brave, and just it's a difficult thing to do because it requires someone to consistently be confronted by new information that conflicts with their previous information. And again, that's not something most people are even willing to touch with a 10-foot pole. So I acknowledge you for how you are remaining dedicated to this, not just in you knowing the list, but embodying it by speaking through these things, even though you had mentioned multiple times you felt sick to your stomach, talking about topics that are very sensitive and are all subject to cancel culture that you started to just kind of dance and play in because you wanted to stand for something. So I just acknowledge you for that because that's a rare quality, Bryce.
I appreciate it. All right, I'm done with this one.
Yeah.
And I think we're done for today. So
Yes, we are.
we'll meet up next week. And next week, the Switch 2 comes out, one week from now. And so I'm excited for that. But
Nice.
and I'll play with Alan when I visit him in September.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yes.